Oh, yeah, that's the prompt that comes up. I do Zoom for my work calls. I'm so
Just bringing it
Yep,
right back. Yep.
it
All
is.
the Zoom thing. It's just
Well,
Zoom fatigue. Yeah, is it a real
Zoom
thing?
fatigue,
Yeah.
for real.
Well, Quincy, thank you so much for joining us on People Just Like You.
Absolutely, I appreciate you and offering me the opportunity to come and chat. Obviously, we've known each other for a long time, and we haven't. It's been nice to reconnect. So happy
Yeah.
to participate. Your story is inspiring to me, so I'm happy to kind of share mine as well. In hopes
Yeah.
that inspires other folks to make some changes in their life too.
Yeah. Thank you. That is really like one of the things that's been unfolding through People Just Like You. It's a lot of deep conversations, a lot of meaningful conversations where people share just the truth of what's going on, and also life lessons, things that
Yeah,
little nuggets of wisdom that are only developed when you go through certain experiences in life. And that's one of the beautiful things about life. It's one of the frustrating and challenging things where to get that nugget of wisdom and that realization, sometimes you got to go through the ringer. So
facts, all facts.
yeah. Well, yeah, people just like you. It's just a conversation with someone else to just get a window into, their life and what's going on with them. And so there are a few questions that I like to ask, and also one that carries forward from a previous interview that we'll get to at the end here. But let's open it up, Quincy. So tell me just more about yourself.
Yeah,
What are you about? Where are you at in life?
for me, I mean, I guess my elevator pitch story about myself is, I'm a brother from Detroit, who has done a lot of things in my life. I've played college football, I've worked in the tech space, I've worked in the medical device space, and so I have a lot of varied experiences. But I realized as I went through my 20s, went through my 30s, that really my north star, if you will, would be is independence, living an authentic life. So I think to your point, Gabe, I've been through some trials and tribulations that have gotten me to the point where I've realized what's truly important to me. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm a guy who loves Detroit, loves to see the world, loves to travel, loves people, and share my story. And then appreciates, the finer things in life sometimes, a nice robe, a lovely cup of coffee, a nice, well-cooked meal,
Yeah.
and some meditation, some hammock. So, yeah, I think I'm a curious guy with a lot of interests, a lot of passions, and I've built a life for myself where I'm with a lot of freedom to be able to pursue those passions, and I've done everything with intention towards chasing those passions. So, yeah, I think that's about me. Passionate guy, goes for what he wants, and will always represent for Detroit, Michigan, where no matter where in this world I'm at.
I love it. Yeah, it's yeah, for those out there, Quincy and I went to, it was middle school, was it?
Middle school, yep,
Yeah,
North,
yeah.
because I left to go to
North.
Lasser because of football. So I didn't go
Yeah,
to Berkeley,
yeah,
but after North, yeah, we went to North together, bro. It's been a
yeah.
minute.
Yeah, and just the fate serendipity reconnected us, on the internet just
Yep.
recently. So it's fascinating to see just how the connections in life that you make weave, and it's a web. It's
Yes.
nothing in life is a straight line up into the right. Things
Yes.
come in, they go out, they evolve, they rise, they fade, they come back. So it's
It's so true. Like I love following, anybody I grew up with, along their journey and their successes. Seeing you and starting the company because that was you and Greg, right? Who started that
yeah.
company.
Yep.
That's I've just been following along. So I really enjoy, people that have been in my life, no matter it's has been forever for a season. Seeing them win and seeing them succeed. So yeah, it's definitely good to reconnect. And like you said, things just they ebb and they flow. I'm going to visit another of our middle school friends in a few weeks, and yeah, it's always
Yeah.
good to see people I've known for a long time.
Yeah. Absolutely. What so traveling, central focus and theme for you, and independence and freedom you mentioned as well. How have these
Yeah.
been expressed for you in life?
Oh, a lot of ways. So I think the biggest way it's been expressed in me for my life is that, you know, when I travel, I feel just at ease, especially when I travel to Latin America and leave the United States. I mean, as a black man in the United States, I mean, the fact of the matter is sometimes it can be a dangerous place, whether it's, systemic things that are coming for you, individuals that are coming for you, So my first time when I left the country for an extended period of time, I was in Mexico. And I just remember like those little day-to-day anxieties of, oh, are the police looking for me, or is this
Mm.
person looking for me, just like went away. And I kind of realized like, oh, like this is a different feeling. I like this feeling. How can I get more of that? And then my father had brain cancer in 2017 and 18 and passed away in 2019, sorry, in 2018. So during his time being sick, I would go back from Detroit, from Colorado to Detroit to visit him quite frequently. And we'd have a lot of talks about like, hey, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? What do you see
Mm.
your life looking like? And for me, it was always to travel and to just experience as many cultures as I can, as much of this world as I can. I was an Anthony Bourdain fan and Anthony Bourdain fan. And, my dad and I, when we were having that talk, he was like, you've got to promise me you see this through. You have to just do these things. And so, it feels like continuing to live along that legacy, and just for me, I just don't get any more joy and more thrill, than just touching down somewhere new, trying to speak the language, eating the food, conversating with the people, seeing the indigenous sites, and sharing that love with others. Yeah. So and I've made every decision to that pace. I mean, last year, 2020, got me a vasectomy because I knew I don't want kids. I want to do me. I want to be just out and about. I want to have the freedom, mentally, physically, financially, to chase these dreams and try to work for myself and travel more. So this is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Right now in St. Petersburg, I live in a studio apartment. I can certainly afford a much bigger apartment if I wanted to, but I limit this so I could pay off any debt I had, got debt
Mm.
free. I've really been
Excellent.
stacking up money to the point where I'm probably going to have, within the next month or so, 15 to 20 grand just in cash, ready to go, ready to travel, ready to try to
Amazing.
build something for myself. So yeah, every decision I've made has really been in pursuit of independence, living authentically, and having the freedom to travel. I mean, even last week, we had a hurricane coming through Florida, and I just went to New Orleans for a week and said, you know what? I got the money. I don't want to be here during this. New Orleans seems cool, and I had an amazing time. So, yeah, I love just seeing new things and just experiencing everything the world has to offer. While I have breath. You feel me?
Yeah, absolutely. I love all that, and just I'm hearing also like presence, just being fully in the moment wherever you're going,
Yeah.
and plugging in. And it's so easy. So many conversations I've had on this where people describe this like getting caught up in things, taking things too seriously. That's something that I struggle
Yeah.
with personally a lot, and then missing the here and now, the bigger picture, the beauty that's there in front of you. I was
Yep.
just listening to this book called My Stroke of Insight. It's by
Oh.
Jill Taylor, who is a neuroscientist, and in the late '90s, she suffered a massive left hemisphere stroke that basically took her whole left brain offline, and it took her 8 years, and she finally did recover her left hemisphere. But she went through this transformative experience of realizing how much beauty the right brain, like here and now, seeing things for
Yeah.
what they are, and less of the optimizing the me as a separate self out here, the struggling to
Yep.
survive, the like calculating mathematical side of things, how much that can help us
Yes.
to navigate life, but then can go too far and again just pull us away from the presence when we're always thinking about the future.
Yes. I
No.
fully agree with that, and I'll give you a similar moment for me that kind of drove that point home was, in 2015, I left Colorado, and moved to South Bend, Indiana for a medical device sales job. It was the same company my dad had worked for, so I
Mm.
was fortunate in that sense where I was able to get my foot in the door through him. But I still had to actually get the job and do the thing right. So,
Mhm.
I remember like it was yesterday, like not trying to hate on Indiana, but as a Detroiter living in Colorado, it wasn't for me culturally, and I remember I was looking for apartments, and I remember seeing someone being like, "I like literally cannot live in this city. Like I'm going to just struggle." But I didn't
Mhm.
listen to my intuition. I tried to stick with it. I got paid really well. I didn't want to let my father down. I didn't want to let people down. It was a
Mm.
great job. Family members were all up on me, and then within 4 or 5 months, I mean, I developed a severe bout of depression. Like,
Mhm.
started having to see a therapist, suicidal thoughts, panic attacks, and I was just like, I'm sitting here going through all these mental anguish for like a job. Like, I'm 26 years old. Yeah, it's a great job. I get paid well, but like maybe I could just like buy less stuff and like have less expenses, and maybe I can find a job that isn't as stressful, and I'll just change my way of life. So that was, 2015. And at that point, I like literally vowed to myself, like, because people got pissed at me when I quit. I mean, people
Mm.
lost it. They were really upset. And I was just like, you know what? It's either life. This is literally life or death. Either I can stay here in Indiana and keep on doing this job or whatever, and literally probably will drive my car off of a highway one day because I cannot
Mhm.
take it anymore. And all y'all are like hating on me, or I can just piss some people off and just live authentically and see where the chips fall. So I was like, I have to be very intentional, find a way out of sales, find a way out of Indiana, and I did all those things, and it showed me that like I have to live authentically and I have to live for myself, and I'm the main one who has to live with my consequences for decisions that I make,
Mm.
and whether I fail or whether I succeed, I'm just going to do it my way from here on out. And once I made that decision, it's been I would say some ups and downs, but I can say on
Yeah,
the grand scheme of things, it's been a great trajectory, and I'm happy with my choices, and I feel a lot more at ease and calm knowing that I'm doing what I want and I'm doing it my way, and I'm able to make it happen.
that's incredible, phenomenal.
I appreciate you, bro.
Applause, huge
Thank you.
applause for
Thank
that,
you.
for one, just stopping and taking a look around and reflecting and thinking like something needs to change. I have the potential to change things. It's not as if someone else is living my life for me, and to make a change, to piss some people off, as you mentioned, to
Yeah, bro.
face that pressure, that if it's coming from people that we really care about and really care about us, there can be so much pressure, um,
Yes.
that can be well intentioned,
Yes.
well meaning, but just in the complex scheme of life, like, they don't know what it's like to wake up and
Yes.
to go to work and to feel like that, to feel the things that sound like we're coming up for you, and to come after work and to think like, what am I doing? I don't want
Yes.
to put any words in your mouth, but to face that pressure to make a change, there's so many people that don't. And that's
It's
huge,
hard.
huge props. Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate that, bro. And I will say this, like as I've gotten older in my 30s, I definitely have more empathy. And that's one thing that situation taught me, is that I have more empathy for those who, like you said, were well intentioned, but were coming at me in a way of, you know, I see now of you had a really stable job, you got paid really well, you're young, you know what I'm saying? And as black folks, we 3 or 4 generations from working for nothing,
Oh.
so for me to have such a six-figure high-paying job at such a young age that would be really stable and really lead to probably buku financial success. I
Mhm.
understand that was hard for some people, friends or family, to let go of. For
Mhm.
me, um, but I just had to do it. I just had to say I'm smart enough to figure it out. I'll consume less because this is
Yeah.
not worth the stress.
Yeah.
I don't need to have Yeezys. I can just get some regular Nikes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't
I
need 30 shirts. I can get me 10 and I'm good.
Yeah. And that is possible. Like the solutions are right there in front of us,
Yeah,
but it's easy to not look at those, or to think like, no, I've got to look somewhere else. I've got to keep going and doing what I've been doing. I've got to keep
right,
consuming more, because what else am I, in life, if
right.
not for my success, my stuff, my status, all these things.
Exactly. That's exactly what I had to work through and realize, started a daily journaling practice back then. And I have all my journals still. And so I like to reflect on those. And I write about
Mm.
some of them in my blog. And I'm just like, man, like whenever I read them, like the common thread is just like wanting to be like independent and free and have the ability to do basically what I want. And now that I've gotten to that point, I'm like, hell yeah, I worked really hard to get to this point. Now it's time to enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like, it's been a long time coming, and I just feel, now that I'm on the cusp of leaving and getting ready to really, live out hopefully my wildest dreams. It
Yeah.
feels very exciting and motivating to keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah. How have your relationships with people that uh were worried about the decision that you were thinking about making? How have those panned out since?
They've, as of like, I would say honestly, just in the past year or so, they've finally gotten to the point where while I would argue they're better than they were before that
Mm.
situation, where there was definitely some rough sledding with some family members who just did not get the vision, did not understand what I was doing. And especially when I started talking about mental health, didn't understand that like, just because you get paid a lot of money doesn't mean you can't be depressed, doesn't mean
Mm.
you can't be anxious. So, but now we've gotten to the point where they've seen the repeated way I'm always able to land on my feet and understand that like Quincy's going to be a little weird. He's going to do what he wants. just like chill. Like he's cool. He can eat. He's fine. He's somewhere in the world. He'll let us know. And I think also too, because I was been so steadfast in setting boundaries and being authentic, it's
Mhm.
allowed some of those folks that have who are on the other side to open up a little bit more and talk about some of their struggles and
Mm.
realize, yo, we're all going through something, you know, damn, maybe I should go see a therapist too. Or yeah, no, maybe it is kind of cool to like do something different. So I think it's been great. The folks who were maybe against the decision I made, I would say now are champions, and the folks who really had my back during that time are now some of my even most best friends because when during my time of need when I wasn't playing football at Wisconsin or getting people to hook up, those people were there for me. And so until those are now like the closest people I got because I know that whether I'm on my highest of highs or literally on my lowest of lows, that those people are there for me. So
Yeah.
overall, the relationships benefited both those who were antagonistic and those who supported me
Yeah.
overall, for sure.
Yeah. Amazing. And then you've talked about a little bit where having done the work yourself and maturing, as a person in the world and a person in your own right, you the the light that then kind of comes from that expands into your networks and like
Yeah.
and being
Yes.
authentic to yourself and pursuing your own path. Like you said, it opens up conversations with other people where they're like,
Yes.
wow. And you're inspiring others. Like you're a ripple from that point once you can move through and process what's going on and learn these life lessons and
Yes.
mature. You can
Exactly.
be there
That's
for
exactly
others.
how I
And
feel, bro. Because I'm like, I've learned so much, and I want to share that knowledge with others and just help folks. Yeah, just live authentically. Like when I was in New Orleans, I was talking to one of the Uber drivers, and we got to talking like in a 10-minute chat. We got to talk about real deep, and we were talking about like what we want our legacies to be. And I was like, hey,
yeah.
at the end of the day, I just want people to say that, Q had fun. He lived life to the fullest and was always joyful. He took care of his friends and his family, and tried to be a light to them. And then he just tried to uplift people and his people. And if I can say those three things, and especially with me not having children, I really feel like I want to be part of a lot of villages, and I want to, be able to just guide and share these tidbits that I've learned, the hard way with folks, to help them just live and be able to do things that they want to do, that they think maybe they couldn't do, or are willing to make the sacrifices to do, and just realize what's really important in their lives and not just go
hmm
by what quote unquote society tells is the important things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's what I'm all about right now as well. And having conversations, asking powerful questions, doing interviews, just constantly having deep conversations. I love that. The 10-minute Uber drive that
Yeah.
gets real deep. That is
Right.
there's definitely a series or a podcast. It's probably out there already where it's like 10-minute deep Uber sessions. Like what do you
If not, we need to
what can
make
be
one and
done?
get rich.
Yeah.
If
Let's
I'm in the
do
Uber,
it.
I'm like, either do not talk to me or talk to me about something real. 10-minute Uber drive conversation.
Yes.
That might be our
I'm
way to hit a lick.
I'm right there with you. Absolutely. If it's not deep meaningful, then like,
Leave me
let me just chill for a minute.
alone. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like,
But if you're
otherwise,
ready to
like,
get to that
just
level,
don't
let's
talk
do
to me.
it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to talk about the weather. Yeah, it's hot outside. I can look at my phone. Leave me alone. Or like, yeah. So we had a good old chat. You know what I'm saying? We're just trying to be a light to people. And just trying
Yeah.
to I'm just trying to like I was with a friend the other day and he was like, you just have a gift of being able to talk to people and being able to write. Like it's he's like it's almost selfish if we don't use that and share that with people. And so, it
Mm,
feels like I've learned a lot from the corporate space. I definitely want to and can think about building a business to consult in that space, think
mhm.
about writing and making content and things of that nature. But I'm just like whatever I have to do to continue to try to live it as independently as possible, is what I'm looking to do. And because that's what I want, and that's what I've been working towards for, I mean, it feels like 11 years since I graduated college, and now's the
Yeah.
time to just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm curious. I've been pondering this myself a little bit. I'm curious your perspective on it. Do you do you feel like or have you seen a way to this level of realization about what's important in life without going through an event that just tears you up? Like you mentioned, you lost your
Mm,
father, and I lost my mom, and that set me on
I'm
this
sorry to hear that,
course
bro.
now. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a club that sooner or later everyone joins, and it's an
yeah,
awful club to be in, but it's something that really can really jar you, can really like
It
pull you
can.
to this place of reflection and away from the distractions of buying the Yeezys every time they come out, or
Yeah,
you know,
bro.
going after all these things that are really not going to make you sustainably at peace and happy. But
Yes,
is there a way to realizations of a depth
man.
that we've gone through without going through pain of that depth?
That's a great question. I know personally speaking, I know I would not have gotten to where I've gotten without going through those depths, without losing my father, and without going through what I've gone through in South Bend. You
Mm,
know, I don't know if there is a way, unless you're coming from a space where you're learning a lot of these things. For me personally, I learned how to meditate, how to really become a lot more self-aware. I think I don't think, quite frankly, American or Western or whatever you want to call it, consumer society is set up for you to think about those things until you go through something traumatic. I mean, I
mhm,
think you could maybe argue that the whole world has went through a defining moment like this with the pandemic, where a
mhm.
lot of folks that I know pre-pandemic and post-pandemic are thinking about the world in a totally different space,
Yeah,
and thinking about their intention, their life goals in a totally different space. So, but personally, I mean, I don't know if there's a way to really put it this way. I don't know anybody who's really come to that realization without going through some trauma of some
yeah,
sort. I personally do not know somebody who's gotten to that point. So I don't know if it is possible without having some sort of traumatic experience, big or small, to make you realize and take a step back to say, damn, like, am I actually doing what I and my soul want to be doing? and
yeah.
and if I'm not, why? And if I'm willing to try, like, what am I willing to sacrifice? And so when I
Mhm.
went through those dark times, it told me, like, yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice a lot of things to live a life that's more authentic to me. But had I not gone through those things, I know I would still be really on the corporate path and clocking in, clocking out. And, like, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what your thing is, go for it. But, like, for me personally, that wasn't it. And it wasn't at the moment I left Miami of Ohio, and I knew it wasn't it. But didn't
Yeah,
have but hadn't went through anything to give me the strength and the courage to say, I'm going to buck the trend a little bit.
yeah,
I wasn't ready at that point to step out.
yeah,
So going through things, I think you got to go through something to see that. Personally, is
yeah,
my thought.
yeah,
How about you?
yeah. I think as well that a that you've got to go through something that really shatters your
Mhm.
perception that everything is fine. Um,
Yeah.
and I've been trying to think in terms of like coaching, like are there questions that can be asked that eventually penetrate, deep enough to kind of like help you see,
Yeah.
what's in front of you without having to shatter it. But
Yeah.
the more that I the more that I look around and I look around and I look at for instance like Eckhart Tolle,
Hmm.
um, and he went through this intense period of depression and just at the bottom of the bottom. Young Pueblo was listening to a podcast by him, and he was saying he used to, and out in Boston, like he started partying, doing drugs, like just like busying his mind, getting away
Yeah.
from everything. And at one point, he just was laying in the ground for multiple hours, thinking like, "I'm at the bottom. Should I call the ambulance? I don't know what to do.
Yep.
I'm like, this pain washing over him." And you hear these stories over and over again, where like, and you see that the people that make the significant shifts that really demonstrate that they've made a realization, a key deep realization. What happens before it, yeah, it's a moment of crisis. And so
Yes.
i I think not, but I think also perhaps maybe it's the formative years. I think the more that I learn about
Yes.
psychology, it's if you have influences that ultimately align with who you want to be, when you start to when you get out in the world, you get exposure and you see enough to think about like, okay, I want this, I don't want that. If that aligns with what your parents have instilled in you, what the society or the community you've been in has instilled in you, what your
Yep.
peers, your teachers, and all have instilled in you, then maybe you don't need a crisis because you're like, this is a life that I'm
Yeah.
aligned with. My life is
Yep.
aligned with what I want. But for a lot of us, as you mentioned, like the Western consumer
Yeah.
capitalist society, it's driven by growth, driven by unsustainable growth. Like it's growth for the sake of growth, and every quarter things have to go up and to the right, or otherwise everything collapses. And so when you're always
Exactly.
when the values are based off of like consuming, it's ultimately consumes you to the point
Yes.
until you step out of it by a crisis moment or don't know. So yeah, little ways to say I agree, unless maybe you never need a crisis because again
Yeah.
you're aligned with who you want to be from early age.
Well, something you say, so that alignment part really hits home because, for me, a little backstory of why I didn't go to Berkeley after North was only because of football, right? Because really starting like sixth or seventh grade, my folks and I, we realized like I had a really good shot to play college football. So, after graduating from North, we basically sat down and were thought through. Berkeley was not an option because Berkeley football team was not good. I was like, I'm not going to get as many looks as I deserve. So that was out the window. So my
Yeah.
dad lived in Bloomfoot Hills, and so there was the option to move in with him and go to Lasser or Andover. And then we looked at, my mom being a teacher wanted me to look at like Country Day, Rice, and then like Roper and Cranbrook. So Cranbrook and Roper got thrown out the window because they also had garbage football team. I told my folks not going to Rice, not going to all boys school. Didn't really want to go to Country Day. So the decision was made to move with my father, go to Lasser. It worked out perfectly. I ended up having like 13 or 14 scholarship offers by my senior year.
Wow.
But my identity and my everything I was focused on was football, 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 football. Basically, until I got hurt my junior year of college and had to stop playing. And so then after that, I was just didn't know what to do, and I kind of just fell into sales because that's what my dad did. He had modeled, I modeled, and really obviously looked up to him. We had a nice lifestyle. I was like, hey, this is a lucrative opportunity. I don't have a teaching degree, so I obviously can't follow in my mother's footsteps. And so I kind of was just like floating along, until moving to Indiana and realizing like, hold up, I'm not willing to just like move around the world for a job. Like I need to live somewhere like culturally good for me. I need to have a good work-life balance. I want to be around people who are interesting, and very curious. So yeah, like not knowing, not having that identity, because had I never gotten hurt, like, and I just stayed with the football thing, like, yeah, like I probably would have been fine, but like having to really sit and really think about like what actually am I independent of the athlete. I know a lot of my teammates, that's something we struggle with because the game ends for us at certain, so whether you go to the league, the NFL, whether you play through high school, whatever, we all have to stop playing the sport we love. And so that I think is definitely something that as an athlete I know that I struggled with, and a lot of my guys have struggled with, because it's your identity for so long, and everything we did, that my family and I did, was to get me to get a scholarship, and it worked. But then after I got done playing football, I'm like, what else do I actually like to do? Like I thought about going to law school. I thought about doing all these things. I'm like, I have no idea what else I like to do
Yeah.
until I took my first independent trip. I was like, well, I like this. Like, this is pretty cool. Like, so I was like literally trying to figure out how can I work. Like, this is 2012, man. I'm trying to think through what are ways I can work remotely before remote work even existed. People are like, you can't do that. It doesn't even exist. I'm like, well, why not? I got a computer, I got the internet. Like, this is stupid. Why can't I do this? And so it
Yeah.
kind of took things catching up for me to finally realize, like, see, I told you I can do a lot of work. I don't need y'all to be looking at me. Just give me the computer. I'm self-directed. I'm very intelligent. Leave me alone. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. And yeah, that's yeah, I feel like there's so much there. Like we could have so many conversations and such a long conversation
Yeah.
around this idea of like identities and you know an identity that is kind of decided for you, that you're placed into, um what the dynamics are of that. And that's thank you, for sharing more of that. It's interesting
Yeah, for sure.
to hear that perspective. But it's also like, how do like what you like and what you don't like as a kid, as you're growing up, you are pretty much in this track that, people have
Yeah.
decided for you. And but yeah, it's interesting, like exposure. I think something that I'm like
Yes.
really like realizing exposure is so critical and important to kind of put yourself out there and see what you resonate with, what you don't, but to have enough breadth of content and experience to say like,
Hmm.
yeah, this gels with me. Like you were traveling, you took your first independent trip and you're like, all right,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
something that I want in my life. I want to figure out how to
Yes.
make this happen. You decided that,
Exactly.
yourself. Um,
I did. And
yeah.
when what I was like, what am I willing to sacrifice? I mean, if I want this as bad as I wanted to play football, which was very bad, I've sacrificed a lot to play football. I was pushing cars up and down Orchard Lake, the
Oh
gym on Orchard
man.
Lake during the summertime while cats were like
Yeah.
relaxing. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting up at 5 in the morning, lifting weights while people are sleeping. It's hard to play college football, like
Hmm.
all the lifting, and it's hard to go, to get a scholarship. So I invested a lot in that. And when I realized that I enjoyed traveling and writing as much as I enjoyed football, I was like, well, then I'm willing to sacrifice a lot of things to make this a reality because I haven't found anything else I've loved as much as I did love playing football. It feels like to me, like being an artist, that was my canvas. I got to use my body, and now I got to get to use my mind and my pen, and to really do my thing and be creative. So yeah, it's like what do I really want to do, and then what am I willing to sacrifice to get to that point? And football taught me that you can sacrifice a lot and go through a lot to reach the end goal. Like you go through a lot to play at
Mm,
that level. So I'm
yeah.
like, I mean, even when I'm thinking now, I'm like, man, I went through training camp in 110-degree heat with pads on, playing against future NFL players. If I can do that, I can get through anything. You feel me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and the experiences, like there's so many skills that we can develop, even if there's a track that we go down that we end up changing, like there's so much that can be taken from that, skills wise, experience wise, just self-belief wise. And
Exactly.
yeah, that's powerful.
Self
Everything
belief.
in life can stack up and accumulate and serve us and support us if we're
Yes.
open to seeing how there's a
Yep.
way.
But you just said you just said something my dad used to always say to me. He basically said, everything you've done so far has prepared you for this moment. Everything stacks
Yeah.
upon it. Builds on yourself, and you continue to gain confidence. And so I'm like, yeah, I've been through a lot, and now I feel really ready to take on anything coming my way. I'm like, can't nobody hold me. You know what I'm saying? I've been through it.
Yes.
I've been to the lows. I've seen the mountaintop. Nothing can hold me back but myself, my own self. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
nothing can hold me back.
Yeah. I'm feeling it's getting late here, but I'm feeling like amped up and
Yeah,
jazzed. I
man.
got the fire coming up, and I'm like, this is good.
Yes,
This is
sir.
soul feeding. Conversations
Yes,
like these, being inspired like
yes.
this is what life is about.
Absolutely,
Connection.
bro. I mean, when I saw what you were doing, I was like, I got to reach out to Gabe because I really think you, like we talked with burnout. I mean, you're doing important work and socializing and making folks realize, yo, a lot of us are burnt out. A lot of us have been through it. It's not like you're not weird. You're not, what I'm saying,
Mhm.
nobody's getting. You're getting gaslit if somebody tells you burnout is not real. Like,
Yeah.
period. What I'm saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, making an open forum for folks to share their stories, I think, is a beautiful thing. So, I love what you're doing, and I love kind of being part of the ride with you, man.
Yeah. Well, this has been a phenomenal conversation, and I had a few questions written down, but we've taken a path that's answered those and added so much more depth,
Love it.
to it as well. So I've just got one last one from a
Yes,
previous
sir.
interviewee, Simonetta, who asks, um, and I think this one is really resonating, but what would it look like to thoroughly enjoy life for an hour each day?
Amazing. I feel like I do that. Like I do that right now. Like I'll tell you what I'm gonna do tonight. What I'm saying? I'm gonna get on my Peloton, get my 30-minute bike ride with my man Alex Toussaint, hip hop ride. Then I'm gonna ride my bike to the Bayfront and put up my
Mm,
hammock and
yeah,
listen to some podcasts, read a book. I just picked up this James Baldwin book in New Orleans. I'm gonna read that. So I feel like I get to live at least 1 hour that I enjoy every day, and it feels fulfilling. It feels like you get in the moment. It feels like I feel present. Um, I feel like that's the purpose of life. I feel like that's what we should be doing is aiming for at minimum 1 hour a day that we
yeah,
thoroughly enjoy life, and that we should try to design a life for ourselves where we enjoy many, many more moments. I would say I get to thoroughly enjoy life like a lot of the time, like a lot of the time. So, it wasn't always that way, but to me, it
mhm,
feels like how life should be. It feels fulfilling, and it brings me joy and lifts my spirit to be able to do something for myself, that I enjoy all the time, whether it's an expensive thing, whether it's a free thing. What I'm saying? I like,
yeah,
yeah, it feels great. It feels how life should be. That's how it feels. It feels right.
yeah. Oh man, yeah, just the feels. This feels right. All of this feels right, and I hope
No doubt,
for
bro.
anyone watching and following along, like the inspiration is coming through to you as well. Like there's so much waiting out there for you in this in life, and you just gotta look inside and start to ask these questions. Who am I? What do I want? What's important to me? What do I not want? What do I truly want my life to be and look like? That's the path to maturation and to freedom, into deeper alignment with the values, probably that the values that you actually aspire towards and choose
Hmm.
yourself, not just those that are instilled in you by society and all this pressure that is typically with us, informing us in our formative years.
Exactly. I like to live, by the words of the great Cat Williams. If you don't have any haters, find you some. Because if you, in my opinion, if you have no haters, you're probably just, floating along, doing the status quo, whatever, whatever. It's all copacetic. You're not ruffling any feathers. But once you get you some haters, I'm like, yeah, you're on the right track. You know what I'm saying? So I try to live by those words like, hey, I got to have me some haters. If I have a couple haters, it means I'm doing something right with my life personally. I need,
Yes.
I need the haters.
I
I
fucking
always will
love
have
it.
that Detroiter chip on my shoulder. Will always have that Detroiter chip on my shoulder. My therapist told me no chips. I said, maybe I'll shrink a little bit. Detroit people try to hate on us all the time, so I'm always that drives me. I will always have that chip on my shoulder, and it's come where I'm from, and because I'm proud of it.
Yeah, amazing. Well, if you have a question that you'd like to pass on to someone else, feel free to ask it here or send me after, and we'll get an answer for you.
Yeah, my question, I think for people, I really would just love for people to think through, and if you ask them when you're interviewing them, just, what is it? What's the big? If you could do anything right now, what would it be? You know, and if you haven't done that yet, what's holding you back from giving that a shot? So, just I would just encourage people to think about that big life goal or big thing that they may have been putting off or been wanting to do and felt scared, and why they have not done it. Because I will say this one thing: any big thing I've done in my life, I've always felt scared. But I got to the point where the fear of not doing it outweighs the fear of failure. So I'd rather do it and fail than live with no regrets when my time comes, versus just suppress that and keep going. So yeah, I would just want people to think about, if you could do anything in the world, what would it be? And if you haven't done it, what's holding you back?
Yeah, fantastic question. We'll ask that, get it back to you, and yeah, we'll pass on the ripple of inspiration.